Hello, everyone. At least on YouTube, I think. I'm not so sure this is. Oh, you want to know why it's not going live on the other channels? Because I didn't set them up to go live on the other channels. Hang on 1 second. Let me see if I can just stream this to the other channels real quick. Like a responsible person, make sure we are, guys, just so you know, I do almost always stream on Odyssey, Rockfin, and Rumble when I am streaming, and hopefully those streams will go through. Sometimes it just takes a second to update. But guys, welcome to Happy Hour. It's Friday. We made it. We're here. We're ready to go. I apologize to viewers on the other channels if for some reason, I see myself on Odyssey, so I know something somewhere is updating. Yes, we are in business. Guys, welcome to Happy Hour. Happy Hour is a stream I do every Friday on my second channel, youtube.com/actively unwoke, and also on Odyssey and Rockfin and Rumble, where we watch a woke training from start to finish in its full and complete form. Oh, apparently Rumble is having trouble. Huh. All right. Well, I apologize to anyone who is trying to watch on Rumble. Apparently that's just not going to work out for today. But that's why we have our other options available to us, and we're going to do the best we can. All right, it's summer. We just came out of Mercury retrograde. Who knows what's going on. But today we have a really interesting training that we're going to watch, and I, to be quite honest, am not sure exactly what to expect from this training, but I had to choose it. I had to. As soon as I saw it, I was like, I need look no further than this training right here for Happy Hour. This has to be the one we watch. And I think you will all agree with me and understand why when I show you that we are watching a training called Milk and Whiteness. And it's got a big old description to it. And so we can come down and see what we're going to be watching. This is from Welcome Collection. I have no idea what that is. But it says, join us for a panel discussion exploring milk's associations with purity and whiteness and the racialized politics of diet and nutrition. Long held to be a cornerstone of good nutrition, milk is entangled with histories of nationalism, empire, and food inequality. What can a closer look at milk tell us about the ideas and forces that have shaped our global food system? And they've got a few panelists. We've got someone who is a writer and a historian. We've got this woman who apparently works at the University of London. So we're doing an international episode today. This definitely sounds like it's British, to be really honest with you. Like this has British written all over it, and you guys know that I have distinct feelings about the United Kingdom that I'm not going to get into today. George says, of course milk is racist. Milk is white. Drink Coca-Cola and be less so, at least in the guts. Seriously now, I think they are connecting it to farming and slavery. Well, we're gonna find that out, George, as we make our way through this entire 1 hour and 24-minute presentation about why milk is racist. You guys can't get this type of content anywhere else. You know I'm the only one I am like the only person on the internet who will sit through this type of content on a weekly basis with all of you. And the only reason that I get to do that, or am able to do that and stomach it, as you know, is because I have beer with me, and we're going to talk about the beer I have in a second. If you're drinking something today, whether that be coffee, tea, water, lemonade, it's a great day for lemonade. It's hot as hell out. Or something, with something a little stronger. Maybe you've spiked the lemonade. Maybe you even have a nice Mike's hard lemonade. Do they even still make those? That was the drink that I always had when I was in like high school, when like you're kind of like relegated to whatever your parents have in the house. And my parents had rules, but the rules were, if you're going to drink, do it in the house. So I feel I was following the rules, even though I was underage. Not that I did that every so often, but every once in a while. Anyway, we don't need to talk about my sordid childhood right now. I want to talk about some other ways you can support the channel before we get into this. Now, of course, you guys know that the best way to support my channel is by becoming a supporter in my locals community. My locals community is what keeps the wheels on the wagon. I would not be able to do this work without the support of my locals community. So even if you decide not to take any advantage of any of the extra perks, and I'll tell you about some of those perks in a second, I still would, ask you politely to consider becoming a member of my locals because you will be directly supporting the work I'm doing. YouTube does not pay the bills. And to be quite frank, guys, if you enjoy content, if you find content valuable, you should support it because it takes a lot of energy and a lot of work in order to be able to put out content on a very consistent basis. And if people decide they don't want to support the content, then guess what? I have to do less of it because I'm going to have to go do other things to make money to pay my mortgage and buy food and buy this crap beer that I have to buy every week for happy hour. So make sure you're supporting the creators that you like, and I humbly ask that, especially if you're coming to happy hour every single week, come on, dude. We're talking about $5 a month here, which I greatly appreciate. So you can become a member of my locals for $5 a month. You can make it more if you want to, but you're under no obligation. You can also become a member of my locals for $50 for the year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can also make a one-time gift. When you become a supporter in my locals community, I like to make sure you have lots of extra perks, really, to make it worth your while. We do 2 community Zoom calls every single week. We do them on Mondays and Wednesdays. This next week might be a little sketchy with the Zoom calls just because I'm going to be out in the middle of the woods with libertarians. I'm told that Wi-Fi does exist. I just don't know how good the Wi-Fi is. So, so I'm going to do the best I can with the Zoom calls this week, but usually we do those on a very, very consistent basis when I have access to Wi-Fi. We do book clubs in my locals. We actually have, it's not necessarily a locals exclusive book club, but we do have a book club coming up tomorrow for my book, which I'll tell you about in a second. There's still plenty of time to join that book club if you would like to. We do Bitchcraft. We have a supporter only Discord. And of course, when you become a member, you unlock all the features of locals, which means you get to interact with the community and all that sort of stuff. Much more value than $5 a month. So I hope you guys will consider joining today. And if you don't do that, then I hope you'll consider purchasing my book, Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. It is available in hardcover. It is available in Kindle. And as of yesterday, it is again available in audio version. Now, some of you may remember that there was an audio version that launched back in April. And the moment that it launched, some people in my locals community kind of realized there was something a little funny about that audiobook. Now, fun fact for those who have never written a book before, usually authors don't get any say in who the person who reads the audiobook is. And I quite frankly didn't even want to worry about the audiobook. I was like, I'm sure who's ever producing the audiobook is going to do a great job. I learned myself a lesson. I did, because as soon as we started listening to that audiobook, we discovered that something was amiss. The person reading it was deeply angry. And a little bit more of an investigation showed she was probably reading it very angry because she's a woke leftist who teaches at a college out in Oregon and is posting stuff on her Facebook about how critical race theory is not taught in K through 12 schools. So, little snafu. We pulled that version of the audiobook down, and I had to re-record the whole thing myself because I'm not letting another quality control issue happen with my audiobook. And so the audiobook that is now available on Audible and on Amazon was recorded and read by me, and people seem to be liking it so far. So I hope you'll give it a try. If you've been waiting for the audiobook, it's about 6 hours. So really, you could get the audiobook today and literally sign up for my Actively Unwoke book club, which is happening tomorrow at 3. And how you do that is you go to activelyunwoke.com/events. And actually, you don't even need to do that. In order to get involved with the Actively Unwoke book club, just forward the receipt of your purchase of the book to bookclub@activelyunwoke.com, and I will sign you right up. I'll send you the Zoom link. You don't even need to be a member of my locals to do it, although many of them have, but you don't have to join just yet. This is available to anyone who has purchased the book. So now is the great time to get involved with that. Lastly, before I show you what beer I have for today, I just want to do a little plug. Sassy Saturday is back tomorrow. And we have, one of our reoccurring characters, my mortal nemesis, the good Christian Carrie, is back, and we had to do it. Alex and I had to do this. We had to. This is gonna be the last effing time I have Carrie Smith featured on my channel ever, by the way, unless she agrees to come on with her pastor to have a healing conversation. But we had to do this because Alex and I were talking about trying to find a video with Mike Carlo that's not about me. And Mike Carlo doesn't produce any effing content. He pretends he does. He claims he does, but he actually doesn't. And so we had no options for content in regards to him until Mike and Carrie, like a gift from the universe, handed us this stream on a silver platter on Monday. And the reason we had to do it is because these two hooligans spread lies about a random woman on Twitter just because she liked my book. Mike Harlow did a whole effing thread about this woman. And so the ultimatum that was given to them was, you're going to apologize to this woman for lying about her on the internet. This is just a random private person that just happened to like my book, posted a positive book review about my book, and was thanked for that by being lied about on the internet by by people who we will be watching a stream of tomorrow night. And I said, if you just apologize to this woman for lying about her on the internet, then we will watch something else. And what did they do? They doubled down like the woke SJWs that they are and said, no, we will not apologize for lying about this woman, even though it's obvious that we did. And they chose not to. So they left us no choice. We had the stream that they did this week. Alex and I are going to watch it. That is going to be tomorrow at 6 p.m. on my main channel. And you can find the link to that main channel in the description below. If you're watching on any of the other platforms, well, that's, I don't have other channels on those platforms. That's way too complicated for me. So that's what we've got coming up. And that's all I have for promos. But what we do need to talk about, of course, is beer. And I have to get set up for my poll. Now, for those of you who may be new to Happy Hour, I don't drink all the beers, but I do want to get a sense of which ones you guys are interested in seeing me try. And of course, I will report back. Which should I start with? And so let's take a look at the beers I got today. I got a good little mix. And let me see. Well, we'll start with this one. I don't really actually care about which one you guys pick on this one. This one, look at this can. So trippy. Ooh. This is a beer called Apples to Apples. And this is a sour ale with apples and spices. And I kind of like this idea because I was thinking it might be like apple cidery, except in the form of a beer. So I thought that might be a good selection. So we've got apples as our option for number one. This one, I almost saved for tomorrow. I almost saved this beer for tomorrow, and I still might, just depending. And it's because it's called High Five Saturday. And this is a simple beer. I don't even think it's any fancy or anything. What is it? This is a Vienna lager. It's a 6% beer. This is just like a simple light lager, but I liked that it had Saturday in the title. And so I was thinking that might be a good beer for Sassy Saturday, but you guys will get to be the judge of that. A Vienna lager, I think, is going to be, I don't know if I've had one recently. I think it's going to be like a little bit lighter, and it's not fruity or anything. So it just kind of is what it is. And then next up, we have, look how pretty that can is. Look how pretty it is. And this is called Heaven and Earth. And this is a Kolsch. So Kolsch is also going to be like very light, a nice like hot beer. But I liked the can a lot. I was like, and sometimes I just buy beer based on whether or not I like the can. Except for IPAs, which IPAs, I don't drink IPAs. I don't like IPAs. But so Heaven and Earth is our next option. And then our last one. Look at that. Boom. This is called Solasta, and this is a raspberry sour ale with guava and passion fruit. So we've got our raspberry in there. All right, guys, I'm putting the poll in the chat. Let me know which beer you would like me to start off with. Of course, I will report back on the quality of beer. Most of these are New Hampshire beers, I think. But let me know which one you would like me to. Hallie says, why aren't I drinking milk? I don't actually drink milk. I drink I drink soy milk. I do drink soy milk. I actually prefer almond milk to soy milk, to be honest. I like almond milk. I haven't had regular milk in years. The Brooklyn Way says, I think that's by the book. I'm gonna update the Brooklyn Way. Buy the book. It's phenom. The neutralization of emotionality when countering narratives is key. Stay frosty, kids. Appreciate that, Brooklyn Way. Thank you so much. All right. I'm going to bet you guys are either going to go for the apples or the raspberries because you're like, those boring Kolsches, there's boring Vienna lagers. And it does look like raspberry might be leading the way. Oh, God, raspberry is kicking ass right now. Actually, Heaven and Earth is doing pretty well, too. All right, that's surprising. I'm surprised at the lack of Apple vote, to be honest. That's okay. That's all right. I'm going to close out voting, guys, in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ding, ding, ding. Raspberry is the winner. The winner chicken dinner. All right. Let me pour out this raspberry. I bet it's going to be really pretty because raspberry beers usually are. For those of you who took Joshua's strawberry workshop the other day, I did just get some strawberry bubbly like sparkling water, like he suggested too. Ew, hang on. It's water in my glass because it just got washed. All right, let's take a look and see how this looks. Ooh, very pink. A little lighter pink than I would have suspected to. It looks kind of like pink lemonade, doesn't it? I could go for pink lemonade in a beer. It smells kind of like it's going to taste like pink lemonade. I'm going to be honest. Alexandra Martin says, I've been trying to find yummy beers in my area is still very lacking. So what you need to do, Alexandra, and I guarantee you're going to be able to find this somewhere. Either go to a craft brewery that has like a whole bunch of different craft beers, and they're starting to become places. I don't remember where you live off the top of my head, but like they're starting to become restaurants that are just built around being like craft breweries. So they have tons of different beers on their menu. You can do like a sampler or like an assortment, and just like, and you can always ask for a little taste too. You can always ask for a taste of beers when you go to those bars, but you need to find a specialty craft beer store. And so you're not going to get like the same beer in the supermarket as you're going to get at like a craft beer store. So it takes a little looking sometimes. Once you find one, you can usually do a good job with it. Yep, pink lemonade. Not mad at it though. It's definitely a sour. But it's a nice hot day. This is a great beer for that. All right, guys. Let's dig in. Oh, I don't know if I can do this. See, these videos have prepared me for the epic 18-hour streams that Alex and I do for Sassy Saturdays. Because, like, I know I can sit through some of the worst content in the world. And usually this is I don't even know what to expect here. All right, guys. Well, if you're ready to get started, please mount that like button for me. And again, you're not mounting the like button for Milk being racist. You're mounting the like button because we are shining daylight on this wacky and insane content. And I don't have anything else to say. All right, let's get started.
Many of you here, both in person and online. My name is Anna Bedard, and I work in the exhibitions.
The sound sounds very low to me.
I'm a white woman, and
oh, she's a white woman. Excellent.
I'm wearing a dark blue top. My pronouns are she, her. For those of you not familiar with us,
okay, I just want to note. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn my sound down a little bit because I think I'm probably much louder than this video. This video is very, very soft to me. So I'm gonna turn my microphone sound down. And what I'm going to ask you guys to do is to turn your volume all the way up. And that way you're going to be able to hear it better. Okay, so I just turned my microphone sound down, and now I'm turning my personal volume up so I can actually hear what she's saying. But I also just wanted to note that this was filmed on June 9th, 2022. So this is not an old thing. This literally was just streamed like a week ago. So this is brand new content. All right, let's see if this is a little bit better.
Welcome Collection is a free museum and library.
Okay, that sounds better to me. So what I did is I turned my microphone volume down, and I turned just the volume on my computer basically all the way up to the top. So you guys are going to have to do your own volume control on this. This video is as loud as I can actually make it, okay? So make that volume go all the way up to the right. And hopefully it'll be loud enough for everyone. But please let me know in the comments if this works out.
That aims to challenge how we all think and feel about health.
Is that a little bit better?
It does that by connecting science, medicine, life, and art. We are part of Welcome, which is a global charitable foundation that supports science to solve the urgent health challenges facing everyone today.
Turn myself down a little bit more.
Tonight's event has been inspired.
Okay, I'm turning myself down a little bit more.
An exhibition on the subject of milk.
Is this better? Is this better?
In March 2023.
Is this better?
Milk is an extraordinarily complex and contradictory substance. It's used as a symbol of the primal.
Let me know if I need to adjust.
Even while it's become an incredibly processed foodstuff, industrially produced on a global scale. Milk is something that many of us really do take for granted, but I think it's that everydayness that hides the reality of its position at the heart of health and economics, of global politics, and of our relationship with the
See,
land.
guys, this is as loud as I can make it.
As milk is separated from the body,
Go into your volume
it
settings.
becomes inseparable from bodily politics. Lactating bodies, human and non-human,
Lactating
are
bodies.
subject to processes of regulation and control. Milk's long-standing associations
women.
with purity and
Lactating
whiteness
bodies.
mean it has been used as a tool of empire and nationalism and as a symbol of racial discrimination. The event tonight at Welcome Collection is an opportunity for us to start a discussion around the subject of milk with our incredible panelists joining us tonight and with you, our audiences, here in person and online. We would really love you to share your thoughts, your questions with us, and you can do that either via the cards on your seats in person during tonight's Q&A, or you could, if you're online, you can do so.
Well, guys,
via
I'm
the
supposed to be
chat
slightly
on
louder
YouTube
than the video,
or via
so
Slido.
I can't.
Subhadra will go through all this again.
Hang on.
And Drea will.
I am literally supposed to be louder than the video. So we're not supposed to be at the same level. I'm supposed to be louder than the video. What I need to understand is how much louder than the video am I? Am I a little bit louder than the video? Or am I 8 points, 8, 9, 10 points louder than the video? Because to me, it sounds fine. So, okay, people are saying to keep lowering my volume. I'm about to be at the very bottom of how low my volume can go. Okay?
Post in the
Is this
online
better?
chat.
Is this better for you guys?
For those who would like to ask a question in person, please do be aware that we do have cameras here for live streaming the discussion. So just bear in mind that the online audience can hear you. And I'm told that the cameras will
Okay,
only be
people
able to
say
see the
this is
backs of
better.
your
All
heads.
right.
I'm not sure whether that's more reassuring or less reassuring. And lastly, the recording will be available on our YouTube channel after the event.
Hopefully this works.
So all that leaves now is for me to hand you over to our facilitator for the evening, writer, broadcaster, and curator, Subhadra Das.
Good evening, everyone. How lovely to see you. My name is Subhadra Das. We are all audio describing ourselves. So I
Audio
am a
describing.
middle-aged South Asian woman who is very excited to be out of the house. And also suddenly really paranoid that the lipstick that I'm wearing for the first time in a very long time is sticking to my teeth. So we're friends now. So just like, don't hold that against me. It's lovely to be here. And it's lovely to see all of you.
Can we all just agree that British people mostly ruin everything?
Used to this. And again, thank you for bearing
Not
with
all
me.
British people. I don't want to, make a
As
blatant
Anna has
statement,
very,
but generally
nicely described for
speaking,
us, we're going to
British
be
people
talking
ruin
today
everything.
about the subject of milk, its associations with purity and whiteness, and the racialized politics of diet and nutrition.
The
Hopefully you have some
racialized
indication this
politics
was
of
going to be the
diet and
area that we were
nutrition.
going to be exploring. Otherwise, this might come as an interesting shock to you. But also, I can guarantee you, based on the panel as well, long held to be
Yeah,
the
there's a
cornerstone
reason.
with histories of nationalism, food inequality. What can a closer look at milk tell us about the ideas and the forces that have shaped our global food systems? Now, the most important people in the room are you all in the audience who are in the room, and also the many people who are joining us online as well. So some of the things
we are the most important people in the room.
Discussion of this evening, I want to make sure that everyone knows about how things are working. Gravity's still working fine as well, which is good. Now,
not common sense,
so
however.
This is a live in-person event at the Welcome Collection, so well done for those of you who made it. And the event is also being live streamed and will be available to watch again on the Welcome Collection's YouTube channel.
Oh no, Grandma Nay got COVID. I'm glad you're feeling better, Grandma Nay.
Hello. Your cameras and microphones are switched off, but hopefully you can see and hear us. We have live speech to text provided by VoiceBox. This is always, you should be able to see that behind. You can be able to see it here, the other behind me. It's coming. Okay. You should also be able to see that on the live stream or access the link via the chat box now. And it opens up in a separate window. It's always very strange because you're the people I can see. This is no use to any of you, but it's useful to other people. So thank you for your patience. This event is British Sign Language interpreted. Our interpreters, Sumaya and Joe.
I feel that it's very ableist that they're only doing British Sign Language, not American Sign Language.
Describing this event,
ableist.
The host and speakers will describe themselves and key visual elements they refer to. Something to do with schedule. So the event altogether, if I do my job correctly, will be an hour.
That British guy is the only good person in all of Britain.
Comments and a provocation to
we like Andrew.
Their research, about 5 or 10
mostly because he leaves Britain quite frequently.
Good. We're going to have a conversation between ourselves, and then we're going to open it up to questions in the room and beyond. That's the last 30 minutes. So be thinking. As I said, you are all the most important people in the room. So we're interested to hear the questions that you have and the thoughts that you have. I will remind you, just in case, because I'm academically trained, so this is my experience. The thing you're trying to avoid is me, when you have spoken, asking the question, is there a question there? Is everyone on board with that? Good.
She's saying don't do a soliloquy at the microphone.
You can never tell.
British people are so nice when they're like insulting you, which is part of why they suck. They need to just say what they want to say.
For those of you who would like to and you're here in person, please raise your hand and we will get a microphone.
I know, I'm just a vulgar American.
If for whatever reason you'd rather not do that, you'll see that you've got cards and pencils. So feel free to write down your questions.
Douglas Murray is not a good Brit. Douglas Murray wants approves of NATO.
To you, are they? Yes. Here's Natalie.
I don't like Douglas Murray. I find him to be an academic elitist snob. That's not to say that his first book wasn't very good. I'm not saying that. But I find him to be an academic elitist snob.
YouTube to ask questions on the chat there. You can also ask questions and comments without signing in via Slido. I don't know what that is. I'm assuming that people who are using it know what that is. I'm middle-aged, as I said. And there's a link in the code to use in the chat. A safe space.
It's a safe space.
We want for this to be a positive experience for everyone involved, and we want to create a place that is safe for people to share their ideas. So please interact in person and online responsibly.
But only certain ideas, of course.
Encouraged to participate in Welcome Collections events, but are requested to be respectful of other participants, speakers, and performers, all to be respectful of each other. And not to use any language that is inappropriate, defamatory, abusive, obscene, racist, discriminatory, and otherwise inflammatory remarks.
Oh, racist. How interesting. How are we defining racism today?
And I'm sure that is definitely the case online. If anyone has any issues and you're online struggling with the platform, please comment in the chat box or Slido, and Welcome Collection moderators will get in touch and be able to help. So that is the housekeeping. I realize it goes on for a bit, but it's important because you are the most important people in the room and we want you to be able to participate. Now, as we go on to... You
guys just got here, you're going to need to turn your volume all the way up because their video's volume is really low and I can't change it, sadly.
About me before we go on with that, which is that I am a historian of race science and eugenics. We're going to be talking a lot about the idea of race. And there was one little story that I just wanted to start with because milk and race is an interesting combination. The people who are on stage with me know much more about it than I do. But there was one little story that I was reminded of in the preparation for this evening. It's a court judgment that was handed down in a United States court in the 1920s, where the judge said that the defendant is one of a gang of robbers who operates in Franklin County, that during the whole of its worthless career has been an ungrateful customer of valuable provender, and that the defendant is an unworthy father of progeny. The defendant in this particular case was a bull who had been brought into the dock. He was a scrub bull, which I'm informed is a bull that is the offspring of non-pedigree cattle. And this particular case was a showcase with a bull as a defendant at a farm show, many of them happening in the US in the 1920s. That was part of the eugenics.
Still happened today.
You may be familiar with the Fitter and Beautiful Baby shows that also happened in the US at the same time. Fitter families, beautiful babies, criminal cows who were not of the appropriate pedigree, who were eating the food and being a drain on the resources, and altogether being a metaphor for the people that eugenicists believe to be a drain on US society. It's quite shocking. It was supposed to be fun. Apparently, this was like a fancy show trial. The court gave its decision. The bullock was then systematically slaughtered, and the event finished with a barbecue. For any vegetarians in the room,
Okay, that doesn't happen today. I was wrong.
But also, the eugenics of this is shocking.
I mean, farm shows happen today.
And this is just
It's a
one
little
of the many
wacky, though.
ways in which the ideas to do with food, to do with the food economy, and to do with products. I am aware. I am grown up in the city. I am an urban person. I am aware that the milk doesn't come from the bulls. I do know that. But I think it's just interesting that this is one of the things in which we kind of come across in the wider scope of all the things we're talking about. I'm already doing a bad job with the talking and keeping hold of the time. So
yes.
Without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our speakers for the evening. I'm going to introduce you to each of them all together so you know who they are. So first we have Johanna Zetterstrom-Sharp, Fozia Ismail, and Andrea Freeman. I'll be introducing you to them in more detail as they give their presentations. And so first up is Johanna. Johanna is Senior Curator of Anthropology at the Horniman Museums and Gardens and Lecturer in Anthropology at Goldsmiths University in London. I used to work in museums. I don't know how she does both of those at the same time. So we are very grateful that you share some of that time with us, and you're going to be talking about some things here. So I will hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Sapandra.
Pleasure.
And I love that bullock story because a really important part of the relationship between colonialism and dairy is the importation of dairy breeds onto the African continent, for example. And there's lots of really interesting stuff about the relationship between indigenous cattle breeds and those that are imported. So we can talk about that later. So I'm just going to audio describe myself. So I'm a white woman. I'm unusually tall, and I'm wearing a kind of jazzy Harlequin silk shirt. Thank you for having me. I want to begin by quoting that
cows are colonialization,
in the
apparently.
history of UNICEF that was published in 1986 to mark the United Nations Children's Fund's 40th anniversary. The chapter is revealingly titled "Civilization Follows the Cow." And I quote, "In the UNICEF mind, the virtues of milk could be no more questioned than the virtues of motherhood. In the eyes of both beneficiaries and supporters, UNICEF remained for many years a kind of gigantic organizational udder, distributing a daily cup of safe, hygienic, nourishing milk to as many children in the world as possible." The chapter goes on to describe a vast program of milk distribution in the 1950s and 60s, focusing in particular on the African continent, as well as what the organization termed milk conservation, which included the supply of industrial milk processing equipment to regions which already had a thriving milk culture, but were not considered to produce milk in sufficient volumes, nor to the standards of hygiene that could be achieved through industrial pasteurization, air drying, or, for example, ultra-heat treatment, UHT. Like many mid-century international aid organizations, UNICEF relied on colonial infrastructures to distribute its milk products and equipment. These infrastructures are physical, missionary maternity clinics, colonial military barracks, agricultural schools founded by British academics, roads and railways. But what interests me is that these infrastructures are also about the ways in which organizations like UNICEF created knowledge about and imagined the needs and capacities of the people they sought to improve the lives of, and the legacies of this today. UNICEF's self-identification as a giant udder associated milk with everyday milk drinking, hygiene and nutrition, as well as milk as a universal need. And these dominate the global discourse around milk through, for example, the International Dairy Federation, feeding into the way that the milk industry today is subsidized and milk products are circulated. So in the 1950s and 60s, US milk subsidies for dairy farmers were so high that the milk industry produced a huge milk surplus.
Then why aren't we having a conversation about how corn is racist? Because corn is incredibly heavily subsidized in the United States. So why isn't corn racist? Why is it just milk? George says, at least they have some basis to say that statement. Cows are not native to America. They came from Europeans. Oh, so it's just the British ruin everything again. It's just the Europeans who are racist, not the Americans, apparently.
It was this surplus that was processed into dried milk and purchased by UNICEF for global distribution. And Andrea's going to tell us, I'm sure, about more of the ways in which US dairy sector continues to shape food oppression today.
I thought the
Milk
same
offers
thing,
a really
Hallie.
useful
I did.
lens
I
for
thought the same thing.
understanding the ways in which colonialism, as European entitlement to take and transform land and govern its populations, was justified and given legitimacy through the idea that particular groups of people needed scientific and technological guidance and aid, not only to live well, but to survive. And particular landscapes, plants, and animals demanded intensive and mechanized human intervention in order to be useful and productive.
Yeah.
UNICEF has been described by historian John
Probably
Watts
right,
as a
Pigeon.
milk pusher, reflecting how Northern European obsessions with milk and animal protein more generally.
Okay, guys, I'm just going to pause again. People are saying they can't hear it. What you need to do is to go into your volume settings and turn the volume all the way up. Like all the way up. Because this video, the volume on it is low. I have turned it up as loud as I can. I have turned my microphone down to be almost as low as I can so that you can then turn the volume all the way up on your own computer. We're exercising personal responsibility here. Turn the volume up as loud as you can on both the stream and then go into your settings and you turn it up even more. I wish I could fix the volume problem. I can't. I didn't realize that the audio was this low when I picked the video. So we're making do.
Enabled the continuation and justification of a narrative that populations in colonized nations did not understand how to feed themselves and needed. Milk aid was a way of ensuring that wider structural inequalities present as a result of colonial policy, for example, increasing pressure to abandon existing foodways, to shift towards intensive agriculture, impacted on the availability of food and the time required to prepare it. It enabled the focus to shift towards the idea of education and aid, and thus an imagining of populations as both unable to understand their own nutritional needs and resolve them. Essentially, milk was one of the ways in which the West has been able to maintain its old colonial ways, further embedding inequalities and drive environmental destruction whilst feeling good about it at the same time. UNICEF's self-definition as the world's udder highlights how the dominant global discourse around milk has always focused on increasing both the demand for milk by educating people about milk's nutritional value and at the same time growing volumes of milk that can be produced. And this is built on an assumption that not only is milk a vital part of any healthy human diet, but it's also the most natural way to consume it in large volumes. And in order to achieve this volume, milk has become a vastly mechanized industry involving the vast transformation of landscapes that
okay. I'm still trying to figure out, like, what do these people have against milk? Because we all know that it's not that milk's white. That's not the problem. We know, like, why do they want people to stop drinking milk? Are they trying to reduce the cow population? It's kind of like how they really want us to eat bugs. You guys know, like last summer, all these ads came out and all these articles came out about like eating bugs, and bugs were being served in restaurants, and they really wanted to make eating bugs a thing. Why is there a thing against milk? That is the question that I have, and I don't know the answer to it. Because I was to understand the dairy lobby was actually a pretty powerful lobby. So why don't they want people drinking milk? And I don't think it's because it's white. I don't, because we all know that whiteness is not about a color. Whiteness is about power. That's all it is. It's only about power. I don't know. That's what we need to be listening for. If anyone has a theory about why they don't want us drinking milk, please chat it in.
created or are not suitable for sustaining the large dairy breeds that are required to reduce the volumes of milk in order to meet that imagined demand. So this assumption, whether explicitly or implicitly, is obviously maybe understood as a white supremacist one. Essentially, the Northern
here we
European
go.
needs and the science and technology devised to address them
Here we go.
that pertain to and are most important for global majority populations. The title of the chapter that I began with, Civilization Follows the Cow, is indicative of the way in which drinking more milk has been conceived of in progressive times.
Okay.
So in these Northern Europe,
I saw this video too. Video was like going around Twitter that a whole bunch of cattle just like died in middle America, and they're saying it's because of the heat. I don't buy it's because of the heat for one red second. Cows are raised in really hot environments all over the world. I do not buy into the theory that a massive ton of cattle just dropped dead because of heat. I don't buy it. So what's actually going on?
These Northern European needs have also been understood as the needs that come with ever-increasing civilization. One way in which this intersects with the relationship between milk and colonialism is the procedure for taking and owning land. For example, in 17th century Western Australia, land ownership for white British settlers was predicated on the ownership of livestock, including lactating animals such as cows and goats.
Hang on. Progressive Rising. Don't. Hallie, don't watch this movie. Progressive Rising, why would you do that to Hallie? Hallie is a nice lady. She doesn't need to see this movie. And listen, I've seen this movie several times. I think this movie is brilliant. Not everyone needs to see this movie. There are things that are in this movie that you cannot unsee. Hallie, don't watch this movie. I mean, do it if you want to. I can't tell anyone what to do. But I just like I can't imagine how Hallie would respond to that movie. I feel like Hallie is too young to watch that movie. Everyone here is too young to watch that movie.
And this was built on the racist cultural evolutionist idea that Aboriginal Australian communities did not use the land, nor did they have the intellectual and technological capacity to exploit the land to its full potential. Upon arriving to Western Australia, the amount of land settlers were given title to was dependent upon the number of livestock they were able to procure on arrival to bring with them. In North America, this was extended to cattle loans, whereby settlers were able to borrow and breed heifers in order to build their own dairy herd and secure land, with loan payments made in milk and butter. So high was the demand for dairy cattle in the 17th century that
There it is. Okay, so you know how I keep saying whiteness is about power, it's about owning the power structure. What she just said, so they consider like, okay, so part of their argument about whiteness is that like white people own everything, and that's why that is indicative of like the power structure. What she just said is that they were using like butter to buy land or something. Isn't that what she said? Hang on, we'll rewind it a little bit, but I'm pretty sure that's what she just said, is that they were using the product of cow to buy land.
Upon arriving to Western Australia, the amount of land settlers were given title to was dependent upon the number of livestock they were able to procure on arrival to bring with them. In North America, this was extended to cattle loans, whereby settlers were able to borrow and breed heifers in order to build their own dairy herd and secure land, with loan payments made in milk and butter.
Loan payments made in
So
milk and
high was
butter.
the demand for dairy cattle in the
Loan payments made in milk and butter, and that's why they're linking milk to whiteness, because they were literally buying stuff with milk. It was like a currency, or butter too, I guess, the product of cow. Incognito says they connect cattle with private property. That's exactly right, Incognito. Yes. They're connecting the owning of cattle with private property rights. And therefore, milk is racist because it was used to buy property, and property is indicative of whiteness. I swear to God, that's what they're saying.
17th century that the Dutch West India Company agreed to transport cows for free.
It's
which is
cow
quite
race
extraordinary,
theory.
Thinking about the Dutch West India Company as an enormous
Cattle race theory.
capitalist enterprise. This relationship between white settlers as dairy drinkers and legitimate owners and legitimate and landowners runs deep, and it's not only an early colonial settler one. So in the 1950s and 60s, around the same time UNICEF was forcefully distributing US dairy surplus to mothers on the African continent, archives from the Food and Agricultural Association, World Dairy Congress, and International Dairy Federation indicate the obsession with growing the dairy industry in Eastern and Southern Africa, and how despite there being a long history of milk consumption and trade, they were only interested in supporting the expansion of milk production of white settlers. African milkways, including specialized understanding of cattle health, the importance of sharing milk with young calves to ensure regular supply, and a detailed understanding of the ways in which the nutritional composition of milk changes in relation to the age of the calf, were discarded as unscientific and wasteful.
Wait, they're literally saying, I cannot even believe this is coming out of my mouth. They're literally saying that milk is racist because cows that were owned by white people were given a higher priority in terms of care than cows who were owned by black people. And therefore, milk is racist because the needs of African cattle were ignored. That doesn't even make any sense. The cow is not a reflection of the owner of the cow. Why is the cow's fault? The cow didn't do anything wrong.
Additionally, technologies for processing milk, making it safe to drink, such as fermentation, the use of charcoal, were considered unhygienic and dangerous, and people were subject, or milk producers were subject to extensive regulation. This was also a period of intensive importation of Northern European cattle breeds, such as Friesians and Jersey cows,
Oh.
given that such cows had been bred to produce much larger volumes of milk than local breeds. They had also been bred to be sustained on a diet of fresh grass, and many archives in this area focus on how to sustain cows on a diet of fresh grass in an environment that doesn't support it. So how to irrigate, use aerial spraying of pesticides, how to enclose land and erect borders to keep others out. I'm going to stop there because I think I've run out of time.
Oh.
But
They're apparently totally fine with building a wall when it comes to milk. We forgot bingo cards. I mean, I think the link to the bingo cards is in the description. You're welcome to play bingo if you want. I don't think this is going to be a good bingo day. I don't think it is, but everyone's welcome to. I'll if people want bingo cards, hang on. If the link isn't in the thing, I'll give you the link in the chat. One sec. There you go. Thank you, Incognito.
to say, so thank you very much.
That's wonderful. We will definitely come back to that, and thanks for being mindful. I really appreciate it. Okay, next. Fawzia, it's your turn. So it is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you Fawzia Ismail. She is a scholar, a cook, and a founder of Arawello Eats. Apologies if I mispronounced that. I should have asked you before that. A platform for exploring politics, identity, and colonialism, all of our favorite things, through East African food. She has worked with a range of cultural institutions on exploring food and empire, and she's appeared on my personal favorite, the BBC's food program, BBC's Radio 4 food program. So she's famous. We're lucky to have her here. And she's also part of the Dahan Collective. Yeah. So close, but so far. A Somali feminist art collective in Bristol. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Fawzia. I'm a very tired Somali woman. I cooked for 200 people yesterday at the watershed, so you'll have to excuse me. Wearing a grey dress and curly hair, purple lipstick. Okay. That was really interesting. It would be really great to have a discussion later. What I'm going to do is focus on camel milk. So what's really interesting?
Camels are racist
Somali
too. Excellent.
Camel milk.
Oh
So
no, camels are
really
not racist because Somali people drink it.
Culture.
Camels are anti-racist.
I've got an image for you. So
are they going to talk about how camels are oppressed compared to cows?
Is a recipe that my mum did, which was an alternative recipe. The image is of a wooden carved camel. You have on a white table, you've got a glass of kind of a bubbly looking milk, and then you've got this weaved object, the hag, which is like a really good. Basically, that is what when you're milking a camel, that's what would go on your knee, and so because the camel's so tall. I'm going to read a little bit of an extract from my paper, which is talking about this kind of association of camel and this funny alternative milk that Somali people across the diaspora used to do, which is made of yogurt, Sprite, water, and salt.
Sprite?
It's amazing. It's really interesting.
Gross.
That was what the alternative for camel milk was. If landscape is a way of seeing that we learn,
gross.
Inextricably linked with England. I learned to make hawash in England, and yet it is also a reminder of home, or at least of a landscape that is not English. When we as a family go for walks in the beautiful English countryside around Bristol, I always take a flask of shah or chai. I grew up drinking shah, the tea my mother made for guests. My boys now associate country walks with shah as does my English husband. It is the only time I make it. I think there's something beautiful in this, a Somali trace of spiced tea in the rural English landscape. T.S. Eliot articulates the complexities of this migration well. The migrations of modern times have transplanted themselves according to some social, religious, economic, or political determination, or a peculiar mixture of these. There has therefore been something in the removements, this is why I'm tired, analogous in nature to a religious schism. The people have taken with them only a part of the total culture. The culture which develops on the new soil must therefore be bafflingly alike and different from the parent culture. Wherever people migrate, there will always be gaps in the availability of foodstuffs. Some seemingly essential items that cannot be transported or do not grow well in the new environment. For my mother, who grew up as a goat herder on the Ethiopian-Somali border, fresh camel milk has a strong association with the Somali landscape. Since leaving Somaliland, this camel milk has become for her imbued with mystical powers. Camels are so important to sustaining Somali nomads that there are 46 different words for camel. My mother firmly believes fresh camel milk cures all sorts of ailments, and she laments its loss. The loss is far greater than just camel milk. It is a loss of home, a loss so keenly felt that my mother, along with a generation of her peers, took up this recipe for camel milk, consisting of these unlikely ingredients of
But
7-Up, natural
don't
yogurt,
camels
salt,
still
and water.
exist, and can't you still milk
Imagine
them?
our excitement.
Like, am I
every
wrong?
Ramadan when she would
Why are they saying camel
make
milk
us
is
this
lost?
camel milk. For children of the African diaspora, the idea of home or this parent culture is entwined with food.
I don't understand.
If culture began when the raw got cooked, the making of eating of food becomes much more than nourishment. In a foreign land or in a hostile and racist world, it becomes a safety net for your identity, a space where you can simply exist and recharge this sense of you as a human outside of the white gaze. When you leave
Like,
this
did camels go
safety net,
extinct?
you again become defined by your otherness. As I write this paper, I'm aware of the famine that is devastating East Africa. I'm aware because we are always aware of what is happening back home and do what we can to help. We are connected. My mother's sister is still a nomadic goat herder, like many others, and has seen her flock and way of life devastated. I've struggled to reconcile this reality with running an East African supper club. It seems indulgent and wrong to be commodifying Somali food here, while the very people who have inspired the food are struggling. We live in a time of political uncertainty. The recent vote to leave, this was written in 2017, and it's unbelievable to me how it's still relevant now. There's
Are
another
they about to talk about Brexit?
famine and drought that's happening in East Africa. Yeah. So we live in a time of political uncertainty. The recent vote to leave Britain, Britain to leave the EU was rooted in this idea of empire. The making Britain great again is a form of nostalgia, a longing for a past that...
Wait, Brexit is racist. Milk is racist because Brexit is racist because wanting to leave the European Union, it really is all about globalism, isn't it? Like, that's all these, like, why is Britain deciding its own fate separately from the European Union? Why is that remotely racist and about empire? That makes no sense.
Makes people like me.
And
such uncertainty,
and if you don't like it, like 5 years later, then why do you still live there? Like, this woman's talking about how she feels guilty about, like, what's going on in her homeland, and like, how, like, she's doing this supper club in Britain where she serves Somali food, and she feels guilty about not being able to send it home, and then they voted to leave the European Union, and that's an example of colonialism. Then leave. Then leave. No one is forcing you to live in Britain. You can leave if you don't want to live there. George Andre Veloso Nunez says maybe the culture of drinking it is lost because it must be too expensive compared to cow milk. Another way milk is racist, it's also Islamophobic. Oh God, I guess so.
This in food. The setting up of Arrow Eats has been in some ways a response to a gap in the food scene, in others an outlet for my own nostalgia for Somaliland, a land I never
Then
lived
go
in, but which frames
home.
so much of my world through its wonderful people and cuisine. I hope it will frame my children's world too. Somali spiced tea fits well in the English landscape. So the context for me mentioning the famine is camel milk. The reason why camels are so important to Somali people is we are entwined. Like the Somali people could not have survived in the kind of very arid climate, and we adapted. And not only did we adapt, it's actually such an essential part of our culture. So from the weaving objects to the amount of camel songs that you get. So what's happening with climate change and this
Woke buzzword.
is
Ding ding ding
really
ding ding.
it's
Climate
all of the
change.
intangible cultural heritage that's lost of nomadic life. And so I'm gonna leave you with this song. These
God,
are
their
some
sound
artists
is all
I
messed
worked
up.
with.
It's like buzzing
A
in
lot
my
of them were
ears.
nomadic before they came
It's
here.
colonialism. That's why this sound sucks. That's a pretty song, actually. I don't understand why she's playing the song. It's a pretty
This was
song,
a
though.
song, like a love letter to. Like, it's almost a love song for the camel. Like, and there are so many songs like that. There's work songs. There's, it's, and I think the amazing thing about Somali nomadic pastoralists are the fact that they have been self-sufficient essentially and the British colonialists and European hated them because of this kind of their love of the camel and their different relationship to milk, to not being bordered, and being free, and the camel was a really essential part of that freedom. I'm gonna stop there.
Thank you. And thank you for the honesty of that. I think that's probably not a single person in this room and beyond who hasn't been affected by that. So thank you. Also, just to inject a teeny bit of lightness, I'm mindful of the fact that yogurt, Sprite, water, and salt is probably the most offensive thing we're going to hear today. So
that was deeply offensive.
Came back in
deeply offensive
as well. I was like,
deeply.
Because let us always remember T.S. Eliot, an anagram of toilets. Now, these things are complicated. You'll forgive me. I just wanted to, because I'm on the verge of tears listening to you, so I just wanted to lighten.
Oh, the sound just got really loud, didn't it?
Introducing you to our last panelist, Dr.
Did the sound just go way up for everyone else?
Who is Professor of Law and Carl Smith.
I'm turning my volume back up. I can't hear anything.
At the University of Hawaii, William S. Richardson School of Law.
Ooh,
she's also a Fulbright
the sound is back
at King's College London. Couple of books
all
to
right.
her name, one forthcoming. We'll be hearing more about that shortly.
All right.
Well,
how does my sound sound?
Policy,
let me know if I'm
health and consumer credit with a special interest.
Let me know if you can hear
in
me.
The whiteness of milk. Oh. She's my new favorite academic. So
that sound just went through the roof. Now I do just everything you get on the fly.
At least
leave myself low. Okay. Do I sound okay right now? Because I can't hear myself.
All right.
Let me know if I sound okay.
Generous introduction. I'm very excited to be here with these incredible people. My name, as you said, is Andrea Freeman. My pronouns are she and they. I am white. I have long,
and I am wearing a
hair,
mask.
and I have a black top with
You're
silver
more
studs
quiet, okay.
and purple.
How am I now? Is that better?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. So. Although it's surprising to some people, but not this audience tonight.
Oh, good. See? Oh, good. Okay, sounds like we've got some sort of parody
link between
now.
milk and white supremacy is what we might think of as an open secret. It's there for anyone who is looking to find it. So here is a mayoral candidate and actor Lawrence Fox, who used a milk emoji as a symbol of white supremacy in his Twitter name. Following in the footsteps of Richard Spencer, who invented the term alt-right, and Baked Alaska.
Oh my God,
who
here
took
we go.
part in the January 6th Capitol riots. These are neo-Nazis who crashed an anti-Trump installation, chugging jugs of milk, letting it dribble down their bare chests.
Is that really a thing?
Saying that they had an anti-vegan agenda. Milk has long been associated with Nazis, and here we see
that's a movie.
It's a scene from the Quentin Tarantino movie.
That's a movie.
It says, Heil milk, Heil cows, Heil our people's lactose tolerance.
That was literally a satire. That wasn't real. That was a movie.
Is a person, presumably female, being given a foot milk bath with a large swastika in the background.
What the hell? Is this real?
Here is another association of Aryans.
I don't even know what
to
think about
this. This one is from History of Agriculture.
This is completely unexpected. I didn't see this coming.
In the state of New York.
What the hell?
This is from the movie Get Out, an excellent film if anyone has not seen it yet, where a white supremacist divides her milk and her Fruit Loops to retain the milk's purity. These are some white supremacist message boards.
Hang on.
A poem.
Get Out was literally about rich white people being inserted into the bodies of black people. And you're going to tell me that it was all about maintaining the purity of whiteness? Did you watch the rest of the movie? It was literally, it is a great movie, by the way, but like, it was literally about white people inserting them, living as black people. And you're going to tell me that they were all about maintaining the purity of whiteness. They were literally inserting themselves into black bodies to experience the world as black people. That's not maintaining the purity of whiteness. Skeleton Key is a awesome movie. Awesome movie. Wow. This like came out of nowhere. It's like we're talking about like people used milk and butter to buy land, and therefore milk is white supremacy because they used it to buy land. And then this next lady's like, we cannot get milk from camels anymore for reasons that I can't really explain, but we should camel milk is being eradicated, and that is why milk is white supremacy. And then this lady comes along, she's like, Nazis. I just did not see this coming. I was like, this is unexpected.
Roses are red, Barack is half black. If you can't drink milk, you have to go back.
Cabin in the Woods, also a great movie.
I'm being generous, calling that a poem. And here's, another sort of bigger...
and I just want to say, this is why we suffer through the boring bits. Because we were having some sound problems. They've managed to fix those, which is good, which is awesome. But we suffered through the first part of this presentation, and now we have hit the meat of it. And this happens on every happy hour. If you are new to happy hour and you're like, why are we watching this boring ass presentation about milk being racist for 40 minutes? It's because at some point, inevitably, the crazy will come out and will be on display for all of us to see. And then we're like, that's why we sat through the boring bits. That's why, right there.
Image of the map that has lactase hotspots showing where in the world people can have the greatest tolerance for milk. And this is lactose intolerance by race. It's in the US. So really what it shows is that only Northern European and Scandinavian adults can really tolerate milk, and almost every other group is primarily not able to digest it. This is a list of other harms that are associated with drinking milk, like heart disease, prostate cancer, ovarian cancer, multiple sclerosis, high cholesterol, cognitive decline.
I gotta download this.
Death.
I gotta do it. I gotta download this.
There are racial disparities, which I'm not showing, but trust me, I could show you that.
People are literally dying.
Of the racially disproportionate harms that milk has on Black, Indigenous, Latinx, and BAME communities, what's more surprising than white supremacists' embrace of it is the government's efforts to support the dairy industry and push its product on the communities that it harms the most. So I'm going to talk about U.S. government cheese. In 1977,
do not
President
go after
Jimmy
cheese,
Carter
you absolute
vowed
terrorist.
to increase the price of milk to 6 cents a gallon. To do this, the government bought surplus milk, but it couldn't store that milk for very long, so it bought cheese. And after every cold storage in the United States was filled with cheese, the government rented half of an acre in a Kansas cave and filled it from Florida.
This presentation from this woman is proof that these people want us to be miserable. They're not just going after milk, folks. They're going after butter. They're going after cheese. Next, they're going to go after ice cream. This presentation is proof that the woke want us to all be miserable and to just exist on a diet of lettuce. With no dressing, especially not any of those creamy based dressings. Those are going to be a lot. Those are definitely going to be a lot like considered to be racist. No, if she had done, hang on, Vampire King Darkness, if she had done DMT before she got on this stage, she would not be spouting this crazy bullshit. DMT is exactly what this woman needs. It would have had the opposite effect.
Florida ceiling. Eventually, the United States had 2 pounds of stored cheese for every one of its residents.
Really? Where's my cheese?
And so, as was already mentioned, the government sent milk to people in other countries, but they couldn't transport cheese. So instead, they had the brilliant idea of delivering it to poor neighborhoods, a plan that wouldn't affect the price of milk because the people who received it wouldn't have been able to buy it otherwise. So rappers like Kendrick Lamar and Jay-Z have measured their success by their distance from government cheese. There's also, sorry. Okay, this
She's
is an
breathing
image
heavy
of
because she's wearing a mask.
In Living Color, which is an old comedy show in the US where they spoofed the government cheese. So bringing large quantities of cheese into Black and brown communities made the racial disparities in the milk-related
I didn't get any free cheese,
illnesses, and deaths that I showed you even worse.
Oh, they're saying
the
free
U.S.
cheese
government
is bad.
also sent commodity cheese to indigenous communities through the Food Distribution Program for Indian reservations. And this program was developed to help the government get rid of the surplus commodities that were created by subsidies in the U.S. Farm Bill. And it continues a long tradition of creating conditions of starvation and deprivation for indigenous people, and then in compensation, offering them rations that then sicken them. This is an image of a mountain of buffalo skulls. And scholar Dana Vantries writes about how popular commodity cheese is across indigenous communities. A quiz titled How to Tell If You're Rezzed Out has a question.
Hang on.
Every time you see a line.
These people would say you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. If these communities weren't getting free cheese, they would say the government is racist for not giving these communities free cheese. But these communities are getting free cheese. I never got free cheese. I didn't grow up in a wealthy household. But they're getting free cheese, and now they're saying you're racist because you got free cheese because listen, I'm aware this is not like high quality cheese, okay? I'm not necessarily suggesting that this is like the ideal cheese that everyone would want. What my point I'm making is that if they were not giving out the cheese, then they would still be complaining about that. It's always going to be something. And now I'm really thinking about making a burrito after this because my burritos are just a conveyance mechanism for cheese. There's like chicken, there's rice in them. They're really effing good. But really, it's about the cheese. I'm using Cabot hot habanero cheese or wickedly habanero, whatever it's called now. It's really good, and I'm looking forward to it. George says, denying your cheese privilege is proof of your cheese privilege. Cheese is now considered racist.
You jump in thinking that you're getting surplus cheese. Musician Wade Fernandez, who's a member of the Menominee tribe, sings Commodity Cheese Blues. I went downtown to the commod shop, met the blues because they were out of stock. Tell me cheese, please, when I'll get my commod cheese. And Visa cheese is a mode of exchange in which a block of commodity cheese can purchase other goods or services. A 2006 Indian
doesn't that
Country
mean it's
Today
whiteness?
article observed, quote, "Some Lakota still say to this day that the only brick of gold the Lakota people got out of the Black Hills is the brick of cheese rationed out on Commodity Day." Now, the USDA also sends milk to public schools. This is an image from the Special Milk Program. Public schools are disproportionately attended by students of color who are also overrepresented in the school meals programs. And
wait. Public schooling is racist. Good news, everyone. Public schooling is racist. You know what we should do? We should just get rid of it entirely. If public schools are disproportionately attended by people who are not white compared to private schools, I've got an amazing solution. Why don't we allow everyone who attends public schools to go to whatever school they want to go to, whether it's like the rich white private school or the charter school or what have you? Why don't we just let everyone leave public schools and go to whatever school they want to go to? We give them a voucher with money so they can pay for it, so that like they're not like, you know, it's still all kosher. I think this is a great idea. I think we should get as many of these underserved, minority, oppressed people out of public schools as we possibly can. Fantastic.
Top of giving milk directly to public school students and counting pizza as a vegetable for the purposes of schools following the federal dietary guidelines. These are some comics that came out in response to that decision. The USDA uses public schools as marketing sites. And here's a pizza on the side of a school bus. The USDA's marketing branch, which is called Dairy Marketing Inc., works with fast food companies to increase the amount of cheese in their products. So they got McDonald's to switch from margarine to butter. They created the Domino's 11/7 cheese, American Legends pizza product, and gave away a lot of pizza through the Jimmy Kimmel Show. DMI has also partnered with the NFL to create Gen Youth, which has an app that lets kids earn points to become an ambassador at a student summit where they get to meet NFL players. And they get points by doing activities like making cheese and making milkshakes and going around collecting coins in milk jugs to give to food banks so that a food bank can buy milk. And in 2019, 81% of the kids who are eligible for free lunch, who are disproportionately students of color, participated in this Gen Youth program. The USDA also gives milk to over half of the infants in the United States in formula.
Now, we've already discussed how public schools are racist, so I'm not going to beat that dead horse. But are you honestly suggesting that underserved kids who got to meet NFL players are oppressed? Is that what you just said? They're like, God damn the USDA, they put kids in a program in which they learned how to make cheese and then they got to go meet NFL players. Isn't that racist? I don't know why this is bad. I have no idea what her problem is with this. Why is this racist? They got to go do something fun and meet NFL players.
Formula through the WIC program. Mothers of color disproportionately participate in WIC, and the mothers that participate are much less likely to breastfeed their children. And now, if you've heard, these babies are facing the prospect of having no food at all because of the infant shortage in the United States. The government also gave out milk to food insecure people during the pandemic, although other food has been scarce.
But wouldn't those people have been pretty thankful for that?
How milk and whiteness are linked together
in
milk advertising. And I'm closing with this image of a group that opposed Spike Lee's participation in the famous Got Milk campaign, which had celebrities with milk mustaches, that was also created by DMI.
Thank you.
Wait, what does that actually say? So what that actually says is, not milk, Spike's a famous director and Knicks fan with a message for each African American. This is all grammatically incorrect, by the way. 90% of blacks cannot tolerate lactose, so why does Spike endorse taking dose after dose? Lee poses with glue applied to his face, and in doing so, betrays 9 out of 10 of his race.
Used to this sort of stuff, and I still felt like that needed a content warning. So if everyone else takes a moment to breathe.
That needs a content warning. Everyone just calm down. Calm down. Calm down. Everyone, is everyone okay in the chat? Is everyone still hanging in there? Are we all racist? Is everyone still good? Did anyone need a warning? Should have done a trigger warning earlier? The chat isn't working now, so I have no idea even what you guys are saying. All right, let's keep going. I hope everything's still playing.
After everything that we've just been subjected to. And I remember those posters because I went to an American high school in the Middle East, and they were in the library. That was the place where the Get Milk.
The Got to Milk posters
were
in the library?
Get your
oh no!
Too.
Not that! Not the
that's
Got to
actually
Milk
a
posters
myth.
in the library.
I know. Because the calcium comes from where, Andrea?
What the cows eat.
Everyone's good. All right,
So
everyone made it.
Grass. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Vegans get plenty of calcium. Stop having a go at the vegans. They have plenty of calcium. Could we have a quick round of applause for our panel? That was everything. And I didn't do anything to restrict the time because I was enjoying it far too much.
I agree, Deborah. I like ghee better than I like butter. I agree wholeheartedly.
Between us, we're going to have 10 because I still want to make sure that the most important people in the room.
And if you guys have never had bulletproof coffee, bulletproof coffee is the best. Bulletproof coffee is basically, instead of creamer, you use ghee. You can get ghee in like a Whole Foods. I think you can even get it in like a Shaw's or like a general supermarket now, but definitely in like your Whole Foods type stores. It's like, I forget exactly what it is, but it's really effing good. You put like a spoonful in the coffee, and then you put it in the blender, you mix it up, and it's so good. Bulletproof coffee is the best. Trader Joe's, yep, that's another place you can get it. It's, clarified butter. Thank you, Deborah.
To be a part of the conversation. There is a lot going on there. And I wonder because again, some of this is new to me and relatively recent.
Oh, wait.
Just want, for me, the big issue.
Steven says, isn't it ironic that this anti-milk rhetoric is being propagated by women? No, Steven, you're confused. They're not women. They're lactating people. We covered this early. Maybe you came in late, covered it early in the presentation. They are not women. They are lactating people.
Here is the fact that in the United States, the way that the milk was used is kind of like a reverse Margaret Thatcher. Does everyone... We've got this not that much age disparity in the room. Do the younger people in the room understand Margaret Thatcher milk snatcher? We know what we're talking... Okay, yeah.
Lactating bodies. So yes, you're right, Judy. UK, I'm sorry.
The thing that the fascists bodies did was to take the milk away.
Yes, I've been looking into this a lot recently, and I've been really fascinated by that difference as well. Because the way that milk got introduced into schools in the first place was actually very similar to in the United States. It was just designed to boost the dairy industry.
I stand corrected. I apologize.
A trade deal that allowed imports from other countries that was depressing the demand for milk, and so there was this push.
If you like
to
cheese,
open up
mount the like
a
button.
bigger market, and so that's how we got milk in schools. Even though in the first iterations of the milk program, the milk was really bad. Like it made people sick. It wasn't screened. I mean, it was never really a healthy program. But there became a shift in the national consciousness or view of milk, so that by the time Thatcher took it away, it was something that people really felt entitled to. And that they wanted.
I bet that's delicious. I'm gonna leave that.
Rejected it.
I'm gonna leave that up on the screen in case anyone wants to copy that.
This is the state that we're at politically in this country. Is we now have to earn our government's contempt rather than just have it inflicted upon us.
Oh no, honey! You always have your government's contempt.
So we've got there's a bit of a continental divide. We've got the Atlantic sort of halfway in the middle of the stage there. How are the British people looking at this picture and thinking about how it reflects with food in this country? Is it, can you eat your way home, or is it ringing bells? Like,
I think it's interesting to see in the context of climate change that you've got on the one hand this kind of really an attitude to consumption and entitlement to food with no awareness of the impact it has on the global south. And that's what I find interesting.
Yeah, this idea of environmental racism. Right?
Yeah, just the fact that, you know, you've got that they've created everything's so capitalistically driven. It's so driven by this kind of relentless market, this idea that economics works in this way, that I think it's really interesting to step back, and that's why I'm really attuned to nomadic ways of existing or thinking about how do we learn from indigenous communities who are at the forefront of this. And even with milk uses, like so with camel milk, you know, you've got fermented camel milk. There's different ways of making it and storing it without refrigeration. There's different ways of, you know, so that's come out of a need, you know, for those people. But it's just shocking to me that there's another major drought, and you know, I don't know what they're expecting, 250,000, 300,000 children to die this year. And it's been exacerbated by Ukrainian politics. And this happened. I could not believe it's happening again. That was the shock for me. I dug out this old Oxford Food Symposium paper. I thought it's going to be relevant to this talk. And then again, there's a major famine. And so I think we have to really engage with the politics of capitalism, really, which drives this kind of crazy consumption of milk.
For those who don't know, maybe you're new, capitalism literally comes up in every single one of these trainings. And it just did. You know, do you know what the real problem is? It's capitalism. Why? Because the entire goal of the woke, it's not about race, it's not about gender, it's not about sexual orientation, it's not about any of those things. It is about destabilizing the system by gaining as much political power as possible so that they can destroy capitalism, so that they can usher in their little Marxist utopia. So that's why capitalism just got brought up. It gets brought up in every single woke presentation we watch. Every single one. But it's just a fleeting mention. It's never the main focus of the presentation. Just a fleeting mention where they say capitalism. Let's just listen again.
Shocking to me that there's another major drought, and you know, I don't know what they're expecting, 250,000, 300,000 children to die this year. And it's been exacerbated by Ukrainian politics. And this happened. I could not believe it's happening again. That was the shock for me. I dug out this old Oxford Food Symposium paper. I thought it's going to be relevant to this talk. And then again, there's a major famine. And so I think we have to really engage with the politics of capitalism, really, which drives this kind of crazy consumption of milk.
Capitalism.
I mean, one thing that
is why
that
milk
really
is
interests
racist.
me of your paper is
capitalism.
That, prior to pasteurization, which was all about stationary European urban populations needing access to safe milk. And so the only way to
By
do
the way,
that was by
I also think it's interesting that they're talking a lot about pasteurization and different processes that you put milk through. Did you guys know that it is illegal for farmers to just sell raw milk that they create on their farm, just like directly to the consumer? It's illegal. They have to send it off of the farm to be processed to whatever they do in the process, and then they're allowed to sell the milk. And it's incredibly expensive to send the milk off the farm to be processed, but it is not legal for farmers to process it on their own. And that's actually some of the things those are some of the bills in New Hampshire. Like, we have a whole, in the Libertarian Party, we have a whole, like, right to food kind of initiative where, right to grow your own food, to do all that. And so those are some of the bills that, like, we're targeting. But I've always just found that really bizarre that it is literally not legal for farmers to, like, process and sell their own milk. They have to send it off of the farm to be able to do that. Now, of course, not everyone pays attention to that. You can definitely get raw milk at farms if you want to. I'm just saying, but they're not supposed to do that.
pasteurizing milk so that it could travel far. The sort of the global majority milk narratives are about milk being an inherently mobile substance. So it travels incredibly well when it's in an udder.
Yes.
And it also can be processed using things that are to hand. So for example, the use of charcoal is a really important way of dealing with E. coli, of cleaning the vessels that are used to ferment milk. And it's all things that can be, so gourds are used to ferment milk, which are things that can be grown, and charcoal are things that can be grown. But the sort of the Northern European capitalist obsession with growth is all about huge volumes of milk, which require expensive equipment, which means that milk corporations need to be funded often by external funders. In order to make those worthwhile, you need huge numbers of cattle, so you need huge tracts of land. The most productive cattle are imported cattle from Europe that are used to eating grass, so you also have to irrigate and you have to enclose. So the history of enclosure in East Africa is also very much bound in this enclosure of land in order to feed cattle. And there's some kind of crazy statistic, which is that 7% of the world's surface is used to grow food to feed cattle. And this is all about this stationary capitalist idea of milk. But milk isn't all about that. And I think it's really important to recognize that milk is actually an incredibly sustainable, mobile, nutritious way of kind of living in the world, which
the volume is weird.
You know, can be very much
it is
at one with in terms of human and animal relationships. But the thing that interests me is how the model that now, for example, you know, the UN's Sustainable Development Goals are entirely tied up in is this one of pasteurization. And the subsidies that come out of that. You know, the US and the UK produce too much milk and they don't know what to do with it. And so then you get these inequalities and, you know, deals with fast food outlets. So it's, yeah.
So bound up with the idea of, and this is very pertinent to me, for those of you who don't know, I'm currently working on a book which is a critique of the idea of Western civilization. And I don't promise that this is the first and probably the last time that I'm going to mention
a
it.
critique of Western civilization.
What I was learning about was Australian Aboriginal techniques of land
Fascinating.
management, which are hugely sophisticated ideas that go back 50,000 years to do with fire and the management of land. And the colonizers turn up and they say, this space is empty. There are no people here. Nothing is happening here. And the result is these cows being shipped in, and then the environmental disaster. So one of our previous disasters at the beginning of 2020, you'll remember, is horrendous bushfires roving the continent of Australia. If the original land management had been in place, that definitely would not have been happening. And I just wonder, Fawzia, can you speak a bit to that in terms of
absolutely. I think when you look at I've been really involved with the art project that I've been working with. We work with elders, and the ingenious ways in which people but basically this idea of this.
Okay. Brent is being a troll, per usual, but he's actually making a really good point in the chat. He says, this is actually inspirational. Anyone can make a living talking about stupid shit. Yes, they can. And this is why all of you should, if you have not started a business of your own yet, and I don't care what your talent is, I don't care what you want to do in the world, you can make money doing almost anything. Almost anything. You just got to show up. You got to work hard. You got to find the people who want what you're selling. But you can make money doing almost anything. And if these people can make money, then I have hope for every single person who's sitting through this presentation. There are 44 of you watching right now, at least on YouTube. Like, I know these presentations aren't necessarily the most interesting thing to do on a Friday night. I get it. But I want this to provide hope for the 44, 45 now people who are watching this, that you can make money doing whatever you want to do.
This being dirty, or this idea, it's racialized. It's kind of to do with empire. It's to do with this idea that there's no knowledge. And I think what's interesting about indigenous communities all over the world, and this is something that keeps coming up, they really understand how to live with the environments that they have, how to respect what they have. So for example, I'll give you, so in other parts of Africa they use gourds. In Somalia it's so difficult because it's so arid. There's so much, the tree, there's not enough, you don't have the ability to make a gourd, so you weave it out of grasses, and then you will use tree bark, and you just take a bit of the tree bark, and that goes into, like, it's the way in which Somali women make these objects that then go on to process milk using charcoal, using making their own vessels from what limited resources they have. I think it's so ingenious, and I think we have to kind of really look to that, to indigenous communities, because there's a lot to learn about also not wasting. So even with the way in which the camel is, all of the camels used when it dies, so the tendons of the camel are used to make this really sophisticated rope, you know, for tying you know, to really sophisticated, really unbelievable levels of technology, you know, that are made from the local environment. It's unbelievable. And the way in which, so for butter in Roman times, actually subak, we make subak. Somalis, we would export subak to Rome. That was a commodity. We sold frankincense and butter. And the way in which Somali people processed butter meant it lasted for months without spoiling. And they did this through boiling the milk, not camel milk. You wouldn't use camel milk because the fat, it doesn't have, it's got different fats. You do sheep milk, and they would boil it, and then after the boiling they use they would store it in these vessels that were burnt, you know, that you would burn with. And you know, and they you can even see it in antiquity, but you could also have in the Egyptians would import our butter. So it was a big, you know, pre-refrigeration. Somalis were pretty I mean, it's amazing. It's technology. So the idea that then you get this kind of obsession with refrigerating milk products, or this, you know, for safety, when it's, I guess, when you are moving, when you are stationary.
She's kind of racist against cows. I feel like she's kind of racist against cows.
I think there's just
I'm not digging on camels at all. Camels are fine.
Really,
I know
capitalism
camels,
has really
but
driven so much terrible practices.
Capitalism has resulted in no camel milk around the world.
The way indigenous communities around the world have actually lived sustainably. And when you look at stats, so a Somali person in 1 year uses up the same carbon footprint as one American person uses up in 4 days. You know, and so we have to start talking about, we have to really contextualize it within climate justice movements, and
God, we're gonna have to watch a climate justice presentation at some point. I know
more equitable. It's unbelievable that then the people that are literally living in the most sustainable ways are the ones that are worst affected by this. And it's an absolute disgrace. And I'm really, you know, what's really exciting, I feel like, you know, we have to have hope. And for me, a lot of the work I do is really rooted in nomadic practices and trying to engage back. Because the other bit about it that is really sad is, say, that song that we did with elders. I mean, our elders are dying. So the songs are dying. The work songs, the poetry, it's dying. It's intangible cultural heritage. And I like to use the word climate genocide, because that is what's being committed, you know, active climate genocide. And I think we have to engage with that. You know, that's what's happening.
Thank you. That's a lot, but also I can't disagree with you, because that's what the definition of that word is. And I'm going to reference, this may or may not be true, because I've just done that thing where I saw it on Twitter and I haven't actually looked to see whether it's real news.
Oh, good.
But did David Attenborough is going to be awarded a second knighthood? He's like Knight Squared. He's like Knighty McKnightface. And this can we remember, is the man who on one of his TV programs suggested that the problem with the environmental crisis is to do with we need to now start controlling population in order to mitigate and avert the environmental crisis. I hope that it's very obvious to you from what you have heard on this panel that that is very much not the case.
That racist David Attenborough, how dare he? How dare he? David Attenborough with his second knighthood, Nighty McKnight face. I'm going to have that apple beer now. My God. All right. I'm going to have to find a good climate justice presentation to watch at some point. If you guys have any suggestions, you let me know. Let's take a look at this apple beer. Ooh, nice and bright. Looks like a cider. Looks nice and creamy. I'm really excited about this apple beer. I know not everyone wanted me to try this apple beer, but oh, it smells so delightful. It smells like a nice spicy cider. I'm going to have to go get a whole bunch of craft beers to bring them up to Pork Fest next week. This is delightful. This tastes like a cider. It does. Look, it looks like a cider. It's like creamy like a cider. Where is this from? This is from Barreled Souls Brewing Company in Saco, Maine. And it's called Apples to Apples. And it's got a cool can. This is delicious. Legitimately. Oh, so good.
Suffer from drought. Droughts don't happen by themselves. And the people who live in drought-ridden areas don't choose to live there for cultural reasons, right? This is not something that is done deliberately. So
okay, yeah, where I will agree with them, where I will throw them a bone or a stick of butter or a block of cheese. I will agree that there is absolutely no reason for famine to exist in this world because there is more than enough food in this world for absolutely every single person in the world. The problem is we do a really shitty job of distributing the food. Like, do you guys have any idea how much food gets wasted in the United States on any given night? Like, just go to your average restaurant. They're having to throw out perfectly good food at the end of every single night just because it wasn't sold or whatever was left over. But it's perfectly good food, and it could be given to food, food kitchens or homeless shelters or things like that. But they can't because of federal law. But it's perfectly good food. There is more than enough food in the world for absolutely every single person in the world. But we as a collective have not decided to make sure that it is a priority that everyone eat. And so where I will grant them that is that a lot of this is unnecessary and could actually be fixed in a moment if you roll back government regulation around food.
Environmental genocide. But I think they're pretty accurate.
Now, they're never going to suggest that as an option.
Consensus happening on the panel. We all agree with each other, respectfully.
But that's what's
we
required.
We are open to questions and other points of view, again, respectfully.
And I do want to say hi to American Citizen over on Odyssey. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it.
To ask a question personally, please do raise your hand and we will call on you. I can ask you the favor of waiting for the microphone. We're in a small room, but we're not the only people listening. So in order to make sure that you are heard, please do wait for the microphone to come to you. And I'll stop being quite so draconian about that.
Audience
and
questions.
Have a chat about
Excellent.
It. Does anyone have a question that they would like to ask? Do we have any cards? If anyone, has everyone just been, it's all been gold. I will give you that. Like proper gold, not the cheese kind of gold.
No one has any questions.
Yeah, there's a lot of food for thought. Sorry. Let's not
no one has questions in the audience.
But yeah, has anyone, you knew all this already? I mean, wow. Okay. We have got a question over here. Can we get a mic across, please?
Excellent.
Thank you.
Please ask a question. Please ask a question of our woke panel.
It's just coming, I think.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello? Yes.
But can also speak up as well.
Okay, good. I'm quite quiet. Thank you all so much. Like the spectrum of milk in many ways. This is brilliant. I was kind of coming back to thinking about industrialized food. and the cost of food. And we know, looking at the moment, the cost of food is going up. I just had a quick Google. The cost of milk in the UK
You
is
mean
27%
there is
since last
inflation?
year. Finally, maybe the farmers are getting paid.
Inflation is a thing? No, the farmers are not getting paid. No.
Plant-based milk, which I guess is getting a bit of a drive.
Inflation?
Because people are quite aware of the lactase and the environmental aspect. But then equally, the price of plant-based milk is very, very high. And side note, I'm a dietitian supporting people with diabetes, and not a lot of plant-based milk has iodine in, and actually that's pretty key. So check for your iodine if you are. So my question, getting there, thank you, is thinking about that milk still is effectively quite a cheap and nutritious thing. I appreciate that, and I know this in clinical practice, not everybody can have milk, but where do we go from there? Because it's getting expensive, people are hungry, and it is a nutritional thing. What's the alternative?
Okay, great question. Lots of parts to it. Can we? No, that was good, and that was also an excellent way to ask a question. I'm just going to share that with the room. It's very good. Yeah, there was preamble, there was context.
You ragged
on
people. Hang on,
I didn't have to ask you whether there was a question. Part of that was
hang on. This woman has now ragged twice in this presentation on how people ask questions, and she wonders why no one is asking questions. It's because she's ragging on how people ask questions. If you want people to put themselves out there to make themselves feel comfortable asking a question, especially when it's on film, you have to make them comfortable asking the question, not ragging on how they're asking the question. Just a nice pro tip for anyone who does presentations or for facilitations. If you spend time complaining, like, don't ask the question this way, don't make me tell you twice, just so you know, like, this is not a proper way to ask a question, and then you do it again and again, you're going to provide a disincentive for people to actually ask their question. So don't complain when they don't.
To do with plant milk. Andrea, I'm going to come to you about the plant milk thing in terms of capitalism, because who's making the plant milk?
The dairy company.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's no escape, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question. Sin, can you eat yogurt cheese? Yogurt cheese isn't that bad. It's all right. But of course, the dairy industry is to blame for all of this. Let's continue.
I mean, I'm just so not convinced that milk has any beneficial properties that I don't see a need to find an alternative for it. Right. I mean, if you ask, well, what are we going to do if we can't drink milk because we're priced out of it? I'd say, let's have some rice and beans and water. You know, like, I just don't see it as an essential part of the diet, but I know that a lot of people have grown up believing
she's a vegan,
that it's necessary, and that if you still have to have the cereal, so what are you going to pour in it? Right. But I would just challenge us to think of other ways.
Does she want us to eat our cereal with water?
Could you just repeat that really quickly back into the mic?
So I'm just thinking about the variety of nutrition you can get from milk, and I appreciate what you're saying about, well, what does a cow eat? How good is the milk? I agree. Background of food policy.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, but going back to that, it's the spectrum of nutrition that you can get in a milk, and then if you are on a budget, you have to really work hard to cook a lot, shop around a lot, and then the alternative is a lot of cognitive load and maybe financial too, to go and get the same nutrition somewhere else.
I think we might have because I'm also mindful that the respect goes both ways, and what we've got here is actually a really fundamental disagreement. We're not going to be able to solve this one here today, but I think it's a good illustration, really, of what we think to be fact and what we know to be true, and how those knowledges are constructed and who gets them. You're trying to help people get good nutrition. You're trying to shine a light on the superstructure of how all this is happening. There's a disconnect here, and that's a result of both of these things. So this is very much the kind of thing we're trying to work through. Do you two have anything you want to add to that at all?
I would just say it's really important to really link it back to power, in that where I don't want to shame any consumer. I don't think it's about the consumer.
That woman in the mask is like, I absolutely want to shame consumers.
To have alternatives, great, but we've got, I mean, how many food banks have we got in this country? You know, so I think but the issue does come back to politics. get the Tories out. Basic. And I
Just
also
vote
think
for the
really we
people
have
we
to
want
start
you to vote
looking at
for.
how our political systems
Just
are
elect
designed
the,
to
what is it called in the
entrench
UK?
these kind of
The
just harmful
liberals?
practices, and
Is
even
that what
things
it
like
is?
gas going up. People, you know, I've worked with a lot of
Your
in
problem
very
is
poor
you're voting for the
communities
Tories.
in London and
Just
Bristol.
vote them
And
out,
when
and
you
all of our
realise,
milk
God,
problems
you know,
will be solved.
people might not cook just because they are genuinely worried about gas equally. So I think that there's an issue around poverty, basically, that, you know, but it's a really important
Labor.
point
Thank
that you
you,
make
Just
about,
Labor.
you know, for people that can go alternative.
Just
it's
vote
worth it.
for
I know my
Labor, and
children,
milk will no
I
longer
still
be
like
racist.
a bit of dairy in my coffee, but my kids are oat milk. They would never have cow milk, you know, and I think that's a generational change.
Hallie,
I feel like
oat milk
actually
is
younger
acceptable,
people
apparently.
are changing. I did a feast for 200 people. It was a vegan feast. That's what we're doing now. So I would never now cater not vegan. So
I would never
you
lower
make your ethical
myself
choices
to
where
use
you can,
dairy.
but without shaming people.
Yeah.
Capitalism is the only way.
Yeah,
The word-
absolutely.
I should just say, because the mic didn't pick it up, the words ahead of the word capitalism there was, we have to dismantle capitalism.
Yes.
Just
Yeah,
one more
not
time for the
capitalism is the
record.
only
Okay,
way.
good. Just checking. Have we got a question at the back? Yeah? Hi.
We have to dismantle
Can you hear me?
capitalism. That'll fix
great.
everything.
We have
all
a
of
couple
our
of
problems will be
questions
solved when
from,
capitalism is
the
dead.
people live streaming from
Excellent.
YouTube,
Again.
which is great. So the first question I'll ask is, someone's asking, the charcoal used in milk, is it used to dye the milk black or gray?
Yes, I mean, that's such an interesting question about the color of milk. So one always assumes that milk is white, right? But depending on how it's processed, the color changes. One thing that's also really interesting in industrial pasteurization, milk from cows across a very large region is collected, mixed in a big container, and pasteurized at once. So, but in many kind of global majority mobile milk practices, there's a much closer relationship between the cow and the calf and the location and the place. And depending on the age of the calf, the color of the milk changes. And that therefore indicates a different nutritional composition of that milk. So for example, early milk, first milk, has a very different nutritional composition to milk 3 months later. And as you know, mums who breastfed have known, milk is incredibly clever. And that's a knowledge that's lost. So yes, charcoal does change the color of milk. There was a huge amount of regulation against the use of charcoal in the sort of 50s and 60s, or attempts to regulate to make milk whiter. And just back to plant milk, one thing that really fascinates me about plant milk is that it's not the nutritional composition of the milk that's important. It's the color and the taste that determines what is used to make milk. So even though the language around milk is off.
You said two words there. It's not just about the color, it's also about the taste. So she's going to make it seem like it's all about the color with the plant milk. No, honey. No. Taste. Although I will say that one of the things I dislike about drinking almond milk is that it does have kind of like that murky flavor that I don't really like. It's just unappetizing to look at, but it tastes really good and I really like it. I especially like the vanilla almond milk with like a little hint of sweetness. But it is mostly about the taste, and she's about to completely disregard the taste aspect in favor of the color aspect to make it seem like it's about racism when it's not.
And about nutrition, the substitutes are actually about color, which kind of blows my mind.
And taste.
Wow.
And taste. What you just said.
I enjoyed that reply. I hope that was good.
Hello?
Yeah, you there? Yeah.
Oh, I'm here. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was so great. And this leads into the next question that someone's asking. They've also commented that they love this panel. So thank you very much to all of you. And they're asking...
They always do that in woke presentations where there always has to be affirmation like, you guys are so great. It was so amazing. You're stunning. You're brave. I mean, I'm not saying don't give people positive feedback when you enjoy what they're doing. You should always give people positive feedback. But it's also like, it's one of those things where it's like, dude, like, just get to the question. Come on.
Looking at the color of milk, does the panel see the tactics of melding white supremacy to milk continuing in the nutrition and purity rhetoric of contemporary milk, such as oat, almond, pea, etc.
Anyone? I'm trying to wrap my head around.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think there's some deep feeling of connection to the cow, and that the cow is central to that idea. But who knows? People are adaptable. Yeah.
It's also about.
Does anyone have a deep-seated connection to the cow when you drink dairy milk? I have never thought about having a deep-seated connection to the cow. I don't think about having a deep-seated connection to the almond either when I drink almond milk, to be fair.
The imagined idea of lactose intolerance, right?
Like the map.
Lactose persistence.
Yeah, so that that's what makes certain people special, right? Is that they can tolerate this when most people past childhood cannot. And so if they aren't able to distinguish themselves in that way,
that's one of the so it's one of the inherent biases in and racism inherent in Western medicine is that the phrase is lactose intolerance, when the vast majority of people have the situation, they're the ones who are intolerant. I think the main thing probably to keep in mind is that racists are not very clever. But they do cotton on to the work of a lot of clever people, and this is where the danger lies, is because they look at the science. And
racists are not very clever, but they're clever enough to glom onto the work of clever people and to look at the science. And of course, how they're defining racist is not how any of us would define racist. They're defining racist as people who support milk. Incognito says, is chocolate milk white supremacist / racist? Probably Incognito, because chocolate milk is just dairy milk with something mixed into it to make it chocolate. So I assume that it still has the same rules. It doesn't come out of the cow chocolate, as it were.
Some of the science is super outdated and super old, but a lot of it isn't. And I think I would just reminding people who are scientists, you have a responsibility to understand how your research is being used.
And if it's used by people who like milk.
Lactose persistence. So that is, there are a lot of studies that look at actually communities that drink milk that's locally produced digest lactose. So there's a kind of a biome going on there.
Makes sense.
So it's to do with, this idea of kind of who can and can't digest lactose is one that's entirely built around this kind of Northern European obsession of taking milk from.
Brent is actually making a great point in the chat. Chocolate milk is probably the blackface of milk. So it's probably like chocolate milk is probably like extra racist. Would be my guess. Maybe someone will ask the question, but I tend to doubt it because remember they were warned. They were like, "Don't say anything racist when you ask a question." And I think that saying "Is chocolate milk racist?" that's definitely going to be considered a racist question. I'm just guessing. I don't know.
2 continents away in order to drink it, to open your fridge and have it like a tap. So it's, it's really interesting. The science of lactose persistence is quite complicated.
And the way that you were describing the milk being kind of
Josephine says iron law of woke projection. That's right, Josephine.
Wine production for your 3 bottle,
absolutely,
your 3 pound bottle of wine. And again, casting no shame on consumers, but that's the process whereby that is made. And olive oil. I did not know that one either. All the olive oils, the promiscuous as well as the virgin.
Yeah, so if you go to your Tesco or your Waitrose and you just buy olive oil, it's a massive collection of olive oils from all. It's not a pure.
Yeah. Even at Waitrose.
Sorry, even at Whole Foods.
Man.
Oh no, Whole Foods is racist. I had no idea.
It's such a welcoming ambience. Okay, sorry, we've gotten distracted.
I had no idea.
It didn't have to be about supermarkets. Do we have any more questions? Hello. Gentleman just here, can you wait? Thank you.
Hi, thank you. It's very interesting. I'd just like to go back to a comment you made about David Attenborough. Could you tell me why the rapidly growing world population is not a problem?
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Unless I heard you wrong.
Oh, no. Yeah, okay. So, no, you didn't hear me incorrectly. The idea that the growing world population in and of itself as something that is happening in and of itself is a problem.
See, the Brits were like, how dare you question David Attenborough? How dare you insinuate that he is racist?
problem is what the problem is. The distribution of resources, of food, of pretty much everything on the planet is not uniform, and it is not just in the way that it works. And I'm not speaking to David Attenborough as an individual, but when he said what he said, that population is an issue, he was feeding into a century-old discourse, that the idea is that you have the wrong kind of people breeding out of control. This is the history of eugenics. And somehow the idea that it's the increasing quantity of the wrong kind of people. And if we think about the way in which we've been looking at this, as I said, people who live in drought-ridden areas don't choose to live there, and they don't choose to make droughts. They are the victims of a global system of capitalism and a history of empire that puts them in that situation. And a lot of the discourse around environmental control, and I'm saying this as the least Indian person you're ever going to meet, but an Indian nonetheless, is we have to look at per capita consumption. Yeah. Because when we say things like it's populations growing out of control, yes, I represent, there's 1 in 6 of us on this planet is Indian, 1 in 6 of us is Chinese. To suggest that that is where the problem lies solely when we're looking at those carbon footprints, when we're looking at those issues of consumption, that's where the problem is. He can have all the knighthoods he wants, but he is a person in a position of huge influence, and he has to be careful about his rhetoric and how he uses it, because those people chugging milk, they agree with him. But I don't think they necessarily, I don't know whether he would agree with them in terms of solving that population problem. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a historical issue that we need.
I see what you're saying, but I mean, personally, I don't know the context in which he said it. So
okay.
David
It was a TV documentary.
Must be
I don't
more careful
he was
about
talking
expressing
about
an opinion.
As you know, he does nature programs.
Yeah.
And so he's talking about the climate crisis, disappearing biomes, endangered species, in the context of the fact that the planet is burning. He was trying to bring attention to a really important topic. I'm just concerned about the direction he decided he wanted to go.
He just didn't agree with me.
No, none of that, I'm afraid.
So he should have his second knighthood revoked.
Is that we've become very depoliticized, and there's a huge ignorance around how
wait. Did they just say
how it's still linked?
Did they just say literally that the problem is that milk has become depoliticized? That is the problem, darling. It is depoliticized. We need to repoliticize milk.
To colonialism, how it's still linked to this idea of this kind of consumption and luxury. For example, like the fact that people even the cars, when you look at cars, I'm always like these huge, great, big Range Rovers or Land Rovers in cities. Why? It makes no sense. It's just a status symbol. But this idea of choice being allowed at without any regard to what those choices mean, so who needs 500 different types of cereal in the supermarket? There's a real question about choice and consumption that we have to really engage with. And so the population thing is not, if one Somali person is using the carbon footprint in a year of what one American uses in 4 days, that's where the problem is. The American or the British or the Northern European, it's here. Yeah, so yeah.
Idea of choice, right? Because there's this subset of the population that demands choice of everything, as you're saying. But then there is this false idea of choice.
It's so funny because Sin chatted in. She's like, she doesn't believe in choice. Choice is now racist. And now they're like, no, people just have too much choice. That's really the problem. People just have too much choice.
Where most people who are living in poverty or just living regularly aren't actually given any choices in what they consume, what they eat, what kind of cars, if they have a car at all. but we're still framed as though it's choice. And so that's opens the door.
What they're trying to do when they tell people that they have no choice, they're very literally trying to destroy someone's internal locus of control by making them believe that they have no control over the circumstances that they find themselves in. Well, what happens when you believe you don't have control? You stop doing the things you need to do in order to get where you want to go. Because if it's everyone else's fault that you don't have the money you want, or the status you want, or the home you want, or the clothes you want, or any of those things, if it's everyone else's fault, then you don't actually need to do anything. You just need to wait for mommy and daddy government to give everything to you. They're trying to convince people that they are victims of their circumstance. No one is a victim of their circumstance. I don't care if you have $1 million or $3 in the bank. You are not a victim of your circumstance, and you always have more power and control over your circumstances than you might believe you do. And even if you're in really dire circumstances, you can start to make choices to help pull yourself out of those circumstances. And if anyone, I'm not saying it's easy, I'm not saying it's like snapping a finger and it'll happen overnight, because usually it involves years of work and discipline in order to do it. My point is that every single person has more control over their life than they think that they have. And if you listen to people like this who tell you you have no control over your life, you will never get to where you want to go. You can always choose your attitude. Your attitude is always a choice. Your perspective is always a choice.
And other forms.
10 more minutes of this presentation, guys, and we're wrapping up.
Yeah, these are all structures we're talking about, and often the way the solutions are framed puts the onus back on the individual. It's like, you need to make better nutritional choices. It's like sometimes, they aren't necessarily down to you as an individual. I appreciate the question. And I think the reason for it is because, we're used to this discourse. It's not part of the regular public discourse. It's not where the knighthoods get given out. But I appreciate the question. Thank you. Question over here. Can you wait for the mic? Thank you, guys. Yeah.
I just had a question around, what does a decolonized diet look like? Or what does it? I know it's a big question.
4 minutes on the clock, I'm just going to say. It's an excellent question. What is a decolonized diet?
Oh, yeah.
You should have.
So I've been doing experiments in circular economies in Bristol.
Wait, hang on. Wait, is this true? Dave, is this true? Fox is reporting 7 Colbert Show employees were arrested for unlawful entry into the Capitol last night. Is that true? Hang on, I'm looking this up. Dave, you better not be lying. Oh, shit, it is true. Fox confirms that groups of persons associated with The Late Show with Stephen Colbert were arrested last night and charged with illegal entry to House office building after hours. Fox is told people were arrested in the Longworth office building. Something about January 6th committee hearing. Wow, that's interesting. All right. I'm not mad about that. Thank you, Dave, for that breaking news.
For example, there was this big feast and the Watershed, which is an arts, culture, cinema space.
I'm sorry, I doubted you, Dave. I apologize.
In how I wanted, which was beautiful. So we really engaged with the issues of environmental. We did a vegan feast. We did it with amazing women who have been affected by modern slavery. So these are women that have been rescued or newly arrived migrant women. There was an anti-slavery chocolate pot made with Tony's Chocolonely. It is the only chocolate you should really buy because there's so much slavery still in chocolate and child slavery at that.
Chocolate's racist.
So it was a joyful feast for all the heaviness. Actually, it was beautiful. And what we've been trying to do, and the reason why I do food, I'm really interested in people engaging with interesting ways that are joyful to deal with impending climate collapse, because we have to do it in a joyful way for people to engage. And so the food was delicious. The kids, I got a primary school to make the welcome drink, which was made with elderflowers that were foraged locally. And so everything was really, people were blown away by the feast. They had a wonderful time. And so you can do it. There are choices that organizations, institutions make around their supply chain. They're around how we view food and consumption. And so that's, to me, that's how you decolonize a kind of eating habits in a way. But it has to be through joy. Loads of people didn't miss the meat either. They were shocked. They were shocked.
Thank you.
I have a teeny technical question on that one, which is the insects. We should all be eating the insects until such a time as they become our
We're eating
overlords.
bugs. See, bug eating.
And they'll hold us up for that. I'm not a vegan myself, so I don't know if this is I don't. Presumably, eating insects doesn't count as vegan. No, it probably doesn't. The vegans won't eat insects, no. But the rest of us who, if we're not vegan, that could be a choice that we all then again choose to make individually.
No,
it's really interesting about the insect debate. It's been happening for years, hasn't it? This kind of, we're going to get insect burgers and we're going to do. You know what's really funny is it was an African vegan feast. There was not a processed pea protein thing in sight. It was just vegetables. Dudes, just use vegetables. Grain, like actual real food that someone's grown on the ground.
There's a novel idea.
There's this obsession though with these alternative meat substitutes that actually then has an impact
burger
again on the global south. So it's like,
I don't care what these people say. I like Impossible Burger.
Grow your own veg if you can. Support really amazing work. Riverford is fantastic, for example. That is a great veg box. They do so much amazing work around soil. They do, and they do work in Africa as well. And there's just it's fantastic. And actually, it's owned by I think the guy that set it up. It's been sold back, so the workers now own it. So support. Where you can, kind of anti-capitalist. It's almost like capitalism.
Support anti-capitalist. Wait.
People want to support.
When you're spending money, support anti-capitalism. Support it. So support where you can, kind of anti-capitalist. How are you bartering? How are you getting the product? What's going on? Do these people not know what capitalism is? Do they not understand how it works? How are you getting what the anti-capitalists are selling, and why are they selling something if they're anti-capitalist? The questions astound.
Support good businesses. So,
Thank you for that. Fozzy's woken up at the end here as well now, so it was a really good question. We've got 2 brand recommendations too, so thank you.
I love it. I like the good. I like the good brands.
Yeah, but the vegetables is easy. We can all do. Pizza is not a vegetable.
Pizza's not a vegetable.
Jacob Rees-Mogg may be a vegetable.
Here in the US, it is a vegetable.
In the US, it is a vegetable. Look, sometimes in my house as well. Yeah, that can occasionally happen. I'm afraid the time has done the thing that it does, which is that it has run away with us.
Oh,
so
I'm
not going to be taking any more questions from the audience. But please do feel free to use your cards to write other things, nice things, please. I think we've all got the vibe. If there's something else that you would like to contribute or have communicate with us. Folks on the panel, really quickly, is there anything that you thought you were coming here to talk about that you didn't get a chance to say? Are there any books that you're currently writing that you would like to plug to make sure that people buy them when the moment comes, and all of these sorts of things? So Andrea, can I start with you? Is there anything that you just like to put on the table really quickly and tell us about your book?
Okay, if you want to read about,
I kind of want to learn more about this crazy lady.
The famous Fultz quadruplets, who were the first Black formula models and the first recorded Black quadruplets in the United States, and how a white doctor named them after his relatives and sold them off in an auction to a formula company who made millions off of them and kept them in poverty all their lives until they all got breast cancer. But it's more fun than that. It's not just depressing. Then please pick up my book called Skimmed: Breastfeeding, Race, and Injustice. And look out next year for my book called Ruin their crops on the ground, which traces the history of food oppression from colonization and enslavement, and the way that food has always been used to oppress and
buy my
subordinate
book
people
because capitalism is awful, but buy my book anyway.
Excellent. Good job. Thank you.
Why did you just give it away?
That story. Thank you. Fozia, tell us about you. Have you written a book?
No. But I...
By the way, that woman is a lawyer. I just looked her up. Lawyer. Guess where she got her JD? UC Berkeley School of Law, because obviously.
Just encourage people to try and go out and pick elderflowers and make some elderflower cordial if you can. It's really easy and it's out there for free in parks. So I know it's not milk related, but I just thought it's around right now and it will go in a couple of weeks. So there you go. Sorry.
No, it's a great
random tangent.
It's a great tip. I'm going to get her tag wrong, but there is a brilliant woman on Instagram. I think her tag is Black Forager. And she's based in the States, and she would concur with you on that one. She does all the cool, sugary, yummy things as well. Thank you. Last but not least, Johanna, is there anything you'd like to?
I haven't got a book,
yes,
but I really want to write one.
Okay.
I'm quite new to this, so I'm actually a museum curator. I work at the Horniman in South London. And I was telling Subhadra earlier that this recent obsession with milk is a desperate ploy to get out of museums.
I advise.
And here I find myself in one. But I'm interested in anybody who's interested in the colonial history of milk, because I'm trying to write a funding bid. I'd love to write a book, and I'd love to speak to anybody who has anything to say, anything to add to the conversation, because I'm very kind of early on in this and I can just see that it's absolutely huge. And I'd love to bring anybody along with me who's interested. So thank you.
That's very warm and welcoming. Thank you very much. I've had a great time. I don't really care whether you have, but I hope that you have, because I have enjoyed myself, and that is the important thing as far as I am concerned. But there's a couple of housekeeping things. So yes, do use the comment cards, and please be advised that as of 30 seconds from now, the welcome is closed. They told me to tell you that because they don't want you to hang around now because it is closed, and there are people who work here that have homes to go to. But they would want you to come back. And there's the exhibition is going to be opening next March. Okay, so keep an eye out for that. And that is all. That's all she wrote, actually. So it only leaves me to thank our amazing panel: Johanna Zetterstrom-Sharp, Fozia Ismail, Andrea Freeman. Thank you so much. This was such good fun.
All right. Well, I guess that's it. I guess that's all she wrote for the Milk is Racist presentation. Have you all been convinced that milk is indeed racist? Are you all going to be good people and start eating bugs and drinking? Apparently oat milk is okay. They didn't say anything about goat's milk, so I don't know about that. But like I said, I drink almond milk, so apparently I'm not racist in this particular discussion, but learned a lot about Nazis drinking milk and using milk for foot baths, which is information I didn't expect today. All right, before we wrap up, I just want to say, if you guys are not following the Radio Shack Twitter account, today's going to be a good day to start. The Radio Shack Twitter account is acting a little crazy right now, and it's really entertaining. And so if you're on Twitter, if you go look at the Radio Shack Twitter account, you'll see what I'm talking about very, very quickly. But guys, that is all we have for happy hour today. Now, I just want to remind everyone that we do happy hours on Fridays, every Friday, except for next week, because I'm going to be at PorkFest. Okay, programming note, I'm going to be out all next week at PorkFest. I don't know how the internet is doing in northern New Hampshire, but I will try my best to keep up with streaming and content. But we will not be doing happy hour next week because I'm going to be having fun with the libertarians in the woods. And I have no concept of how sober I'm going to be on Friday. And you know what? I just want to keep my options open. I do. I'm going to drink. I'm going to get high. I might do other assorted things. I don't know. What happens at PorkFest stays at PorkFest. And it's not going to be broadcast live on the internet. I am sorry, but that's just the way it goes, okay? This is basically my vacation, and it's just the way it is. But if you do want to support the work I'm doing and possibly find messages from me when I accidentally run into people I don't want to see at PorkFest, which did actually happen last year, you can join my locals community at kb.locals.com. You can actually join for free. Bing! Or you can become a supporter at kb.locals.com/support and join us for $5 a month or for $50 a year, or you can make a one-time gift and you will get access to lots of exclusive perks, and most importantly, you'll be supporting the work I do and making it possible for me to continue to do these happy hour streams every Friday where we do this stuff, except next week where I'm going to be at PorkFest and probably really high by that point. So that's something you can do. And of course, if you want something to take up your time while you're waiting for me to come back streaming, you can make sure you download the audio copy of my book, which just got re-released yesterday. I read it. I think it turned out pretty good. I'm pretty proud of it. You can find it on Amazon and Audible. Of course, Amazon owns Audible. If you get the audio copy of my book and you appreciate what I did, because guys, I was pushing myself way far out of my comfort zone to read this audiobook. My locals will tell you, I didn't want to read this. It's like, as a writer, reading my own words is like the most awkward thing that I can possibly think of. But I did it because it was necessary, because the first narrator for the audiobook was a woke leftist and I had to fix that shit. But you can get my rendition of the audiobook now on Audible. And please leave a review if you like it. If you didn't like it, you can keep that information to yourself. But if you bought it and you enjoyed it, please leave a review on Audible. And of course, you can also leave a review on Amazon if you bought the book on Amazon. And, if you didn't buy the book on either of those places, hit Goodreads for me. Okay, I need some more positive reviews on Goodreads, because Goodreads is like a free-for-all in terms of reviews. So what happens on Goodreads is people who haven't read the book and haven't actually paid attention to the content, they go ahead and leave a review anyway, just because it's a woke book or an anti-woke book. And so they're like, I'm going to give this 1 star. I could really use some positive reviews on Goodreads. That would be very, very helpful. But guys, I'm going to head out now. I'm going to go make a burrito. I'm going to put a metric F ton of cheese on it. And I'm going to enjoy it and not think of these people at all when I eat my burrito. I hope you have a great rest of your Friday. Remember to join us tomorrow at 6 p.m. on my main channel for Sassy Saturday. I think it's going to be a really good stream. I feel like Alex and I are going to give really constructive advice, as we always do. We are not petty bitches at all on this stream. We are Alex and I are basically sages. We are oracles. We provide wisdom on these streams. You might see something called Sassy Saturday and you're like, they're just bitching and complaining for 5 hours on end. No. We give out positive life advice. That's going to be tomorrow on my main channel at 6 p.m. I hope to see you guys there. In the meantime, take care, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.